One more time, Slick and Shiny Tongue-in-Cheek Productions gives you a look at Laughlintown, Pennsylvania, as it existed once upon a time. This will be our third and final one, and I'd like to start with maps. Mapping from the 1860s. We have here the oldest building in town. It's still there. An old log house that Robert Laughlin used to live in. Now I'm going to flip this 90 degrees. And to enable us to see this a bit better, I'm going to blow it up a little bit. Coming from down here. This was a stave shop. And probably not many people know what staves are. They're the wooden slats that make up a barrel. Here we have a blacksmith shop right beside a wagon shop. That was a very common thing. Usually wagon shops would have a blacksmith on the payroll, or else they'd be located right beside a blacksmith, as things were here. And we come walking further. This is the place we now know as Compass Inn. It was then a store and the post office. And the Armour family were in possession. Interestingly, the Armour family lived there for 7 generations. That's right, I said 7 generations. That's a long time. Here we see another blacksmith shop, pointing out the fact, something we don't pay attention to, that blacksmith shops were very important in days gone by, for reasons that have kind of escaped us, because we get stuff at the store and we very rarely think about metal things that we're working on that we want to get fixed or taken care of. We don't go to the local blacksmith to get something pounded into a shape that we can use for something we're working on. We go past Luther, Tautlinger, Campbell. Come up. This was the schoolhouse. A shop here. This was the house of one of the St. Clair family. Most people, when they think of St. Clair, think of Arthur St. Clair, who was one time had a house just north of Ligonier a bit, where he had the Hermitage furnace, iron furnace. And that's kind of a long story that I don't want to go into. And we're going to move on. Now this is that school that I pointed out on the map. This is not the oldest schools, but one of the old schools. This is the location where William St. Clair lived, but I don't think that was his house. That might be a newer one. Now we're looking down from the up in the air. This is the center of town. This is the old school that I pointed out. This was the old log cabin, oldest place in town. This is Ligonier Country Inn, which we will see, not immediately though. Now this is that building which was the old school as it was adapted. You notice it still has the bell tower on. It was at this time, when the photo was taken, a gift shop. This is right now. This is the old school. The bell tower is gone. An addition has been put on the back. And we're going to take another look at it. Look at it from down this way. These houses are newer houses. They're all later additions. Sometimes I wonder how surprised a person would be if they came back to Laughlintown from the early 1900s or 1800s and see how things have changed. Now we're looking down the street, looking toward the west. Down here, what we see is the Compass Inn. These buildings up here are known as the Ligonier Country Inn. We'll get another shot of that. This is known as a bed and breakfast. You see upstairs there are a lot of air conditioners because they rent out for people who want to stay over. And I understand they have a good restaurant here. Now this is right across the street. It is the Compass Inn. It came into the ownership of the Ligonier Valley Historical Society in the 1960s, and not so long after that, archaeological work was done to determine just where the ancillary buildings were back in the old days, and there was reconstruction done to show the what the place would have looked like back in the time when the inn was flourishing there. This is the place in 1912. You notice the log house. The log house had been put siding over the logs, which has been since removed. This was one of the Armour family sitting on the porch. It was in the year of 1814 when the Armour family, Robert and his wife Rachel, were passing through Laughlintown on their way to Pittsburgh from eastern Pennsylvania and happened to see this place and decided they wanted to buy it. They had been running an inn in eastern Pennsylvania called the Compass Inn, so they bought this place and called it the same place, the Compass Inn. And the Armour family then took up residence there and stayed there for 7 generations. This is a nice painting of the place, showing that over time they got more busy. This stone part happened in 1820. They were getting more visitors, and some of them were a bit more, well, shall we say, upper class, and they didn't want to be hanging out in this part over here where the drovers and the old farmers would come in and be spitting on the floor and cussing and, you know, raising hell, getting drunk. So they made this place for people who might be a better off and, you know, might be a better condition. And we move on. This was and is a museum. And the surprising thing is one of the Armour family made a museum where the Compass Inn is now. Many years ago, I think about 100 years ago or so, they made a museum of sorts there to recall the past. They were people who had a sense of history and wanted to recall days gone by. Now this is something that was out the road east of Laughlintown on 30. I don't know anything about it. I brought it up just because I thought somebody might know something and might want to pass along something. The vintage of this car, these cars, says something about the 1930s. You notice they were selling gas out there. I can't help looking at that car without thinking of my old 36 Pontiac, which was the first car I had. I'm not going to tell you that was a 36 Pontiac, but it looks a lot like it. I can't see enough detail to, you know, to give an exact comment on that. And we've come to the end, I believe. We say farewell from Laughlintown. This was the place in the center of town, right across from the Compass Inn, where old Zeiters presided as postmaster for some 46 years. That building is still there, repurposed for other uses. And we say that's all, folks. And in case you weren't aware where Laughlintown is, this is Ligonier, this is the top of Laurel Mountain, and this is Route 30 going through, and this is Laughlintown. And we thank you for coming along on the trip, and we hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again. Bye now.